The fired head of the office that investigates whistleblower retaliation has dropped his legal challenge to his termination after a panel of federal judges said the Trump administration could remove him while the case continues. Former President Biden appointed Hampton Dellinger for a 5-year term in 2024. Last month, the White House's Office of Personnel Management informed Dellinger he had been fired. He immediately challenged his termination, claiming federal law only allows the president to remove someone in his position for, quote, inefficiency, neglect of duty, or malfeasance in office. For more, let's bring in CBS News Department of Justice reporter Jake Rosen. Jake, Hampton Dellinger could have continued fighting. Why has he chosen not to? And what did he say worries him about what is going down?
Yeah, and in a statement emailed to CBS News by Mr. Dellinger, he cited that basically while this would play out, which could potentially happen over months or years before the Supreme Court issued a decision on the case, that someone beholden to President Trump would be in the role, siding with, in a more partisan manner, likely close to President Trump, and agreeing with these mass firings, which Mr. Dellinger had petitioned against, in addition to a number of other potential issues with watchdogs that could come up over the next couple of months. He said that he was worried about all of this and that anyone who took over the role in a more sympathetic manner to President Trump would cause potential immediate, grievous, and uncorrectable harm to not just the role of special counsel, but to the country. And for that reason, he said he had dropped the case. According to our analysis here at CBS News with our team here, he was also very unlikely to win that case if it did go to the Supreme Court.
Also on Thursday, a federal judge ruled the firing of the National Labor Board Relations Board member was, quote, unlawful and void. What did the judge say?
Right, and this is in the case of National Labor Relations Board member Gwen Wilcox, who sued to keep her job. She's another one of those people, like Hampton Dellinger, who was removed from their independent posts by Donald Trump and his DOJ attorneys, claiming that he has executive power to remove these people. The judge attacked President Trump for his removal of not just Wilcox in this case, but for across the government, saying that, quote, under our constitutional system, such checks by design guard against executive overreach and the risk such overreach would pose of autocracy, comparing the actions that President Trump has taken in removing these independent agency heads across the government. By our CBS News account, there's about 4 or 5 lawsuits, and comparing him to the behavior and his behavior to that of a king or an autocracy.
The fight over foreign aid funding returned to court Thursday, one day after the Supreme Court rejected the Trump administration's efforts to freeze more than $2 billion in funding. What happened there?
Well, right before we got on air here, Judge kicked the rest of the hearing to tomorrow because he had gone on for over 4 hours, but they're basically coming up with a payment schedule so that the government, in an orderly and fair way to both the reality of paying over $2 billion out, can be paid, and in addition to that, making sure that all the groups are getting the correct amount of money. We'll see what happens tomorrow, but again, over $2 billion that needs to be distributed as these aid groups are waiting for potential months of back pay that they have not gotten from the Trump administration after that initial 90-day pause by Marco Rubio and USAID officials.
Jake, before we let you go, President Trump issued a memo directing the Justice Department to seek injunction bonds when people challenge his administration's policies in court. What does that mean?
So this would basically make for any, especially in the case we just spoke about, where there's money at play, anytime a government group would appeal an order. So let's just say, for instance, in this USAID case, a judge sides with the government. In order to appeal that, these groups would have to put up a financial post and bond to continue appealing their case, which gives an advantage to the Trump administration in these appeals. The Trump administration, in this executive order, accused of these big groups funding these lawsuits of an anti-government takeover and activist organization suing the Trump administration, again, giving an advantage to the government, which would not have to post these bonds and would hurt these big groups who are suing to take on the Trump administration.
Is that advantage statutorily allowed?
We'll see what happens over in the reality of how they actually implement this, right? It's usually only a case of suits where there's big money involved. That Gawker case with Hogan years ago is a big example of how these policies have been used, where Gawker basically had to give up their entire company because they could not post the money that was high enough to appeal that court order.
All right, Jake Rosen, thank you.